Welcome to day 3 of Internet 2.0 conference. Last day. I hope you all are excited and have made the most of the last 2 days and today here at the conference. So far, we covered everything from big data to cybersecurity. It's time to take the discussion a notch higher. Our next fireside chat is going to be, is going to give us insights into how organizations can maximize productivity and keep their employees safe without burdening them with unnecessary security measures. And to tell us more and to talk to us more about that are our subject experts. Can I please call on stage Hing-Yan Lee, EVP of Cloud Security Alliance, and Shivani Sharma, founder of KLEAP. Can we please have a round of applause for them?
Good morning, everyone. I understand it's day 3, and we have heard so many people discussing about security, IoT, big data, AI, metaverse, Web3, and even I was enlightened by everybody's talk, like how well they have advanced in their sectors and what new things they are bringing up. But yet, we are still living in a place where cyber criminals never rest. They're always evolving. They're always keeping up their game a little higher in order to maybe planning their next attack, and how well they do it, we sometimes are not even aware of it. So I say, like, if cyber criminals never rest, and neither should your cybersecurity. I want to build up a scenario over here. Like a couple of months back, we all know AIIMS, All India Institute of Medical Sciences in New Delhi. It's an epitome of hospitals, very big organization, and they were hit by a ransomware attack, compromising their servers in hand. And the situation of this institution is like, there's a security guard standing there, taking everything for granted. Okay, it works, and suddenly the ransomware hits. And now everybody from top to bottom is going towards that shift-left approach of integrating security into their infrastructure and securing their well-known assets, securing their services, and they just want to have security into each and every sphere of their segments. But now when we see they have successfully recovered servers, but that is the scenario. And now when you see they are brainstorming, their top-level management will be brainstorming on ideas how and what security postures they can integrate, what policies, procedures, frameworks they can have in line with their institution. Whether they want to go ahead, do a certification, or they want to do a continuous monitoring, or they want to set up a testing team. Now they are all hands down doing all these services. So with this, I would like to introduce myself. I am Shivani Sharma, founder KLEAP Technologies, which is a cybersecurity startup. We expertise in security as a service, implementation, audits, and compliance. If any one of you interested in knowing what more we do, you can scan the QR code, or maybe we can connect after my session as well. So do you really know, like, at what rate the ransomware-related data leaks have happened last year? Anyone, any idea how much % of ransomware attacks have happened? It's 82%. So ransomware is something which is evolving continuously, and it has certain weak points, it always targets the weak spot of a company's infrastructure. And 82% of people have been hit by a ransomware attacks, and sometimes we are not even sure that we have been attacked. Some companies are not even aware that their data has been leaked. And when we go to them and say, nah, we are secure. But how do you know how well your security is? how you evaluate your company's security posture against the leading attacks or the cyber criminals on the loose. How do you safeguard that information? When 82% of ransomware attacks are happening right now, or maybe in this room, maybe our data is leaked on dark web, we might not even be aware. So this is what the current position and posture of our security is right now. Everyone know what is logarithm. It is a leading SIEM solution, and according to their study, they say like 91% of, they admit that their company security strategy and practices must align with the customer security policy standards, because that is how it is. If you are a company who wants to build a solution for another company, and if you are implementing an MFA solution, or if you are implementing an OAuth or a single sign-on, and if the other company is not aware, or if they do not have that solution, so you have to build it for them. You have to align your services with theirs so that you fit into their radar and you fit into the security posture what the other company is into. 57% admit that they lose deals when they do not align with the other vendors or other companies' security practices. Because if you are a vendor who is trying to do a partnership, if you are trying to establish a relationship with the company, they will have vendor registrations. They will ask you whether you are certified or not. They will ask you to fill your operational resiliency. They will ask you to fill out their business continuity. So you should be aligned with their security policies and procedures so that you are into the business. You do not lose the deal. So that is how it is going to be, because security is being now ingrained. It is not to be bottled up. It should be ingrained from the start, and that culture we have to build. And how the culture of security builds is like from top to bottom and not the other way around. When the stakeholders, when the company's higher management is including security in the culture, that's when the employees also feel the same, and they feel like that is important. 77% of executive participants believe like their employee turnover is a risk to their security. When an employee is onboarded, companies put in a lot of effort on their engagement, on their security training. And you know, when employees have aspirations, they move out, and that training goes for a toss, and you have to reinvent the whole wheel, and then you have to train them all over again. And that is how the security is being compromised, because you have to put in that effort again and again and again. So that's a roadblock over there. Now we all know cyber attacks are here to stay. So what are we doing currently? Are we responding well? Are we aware of what kind of new and innovative cyber crimes are getting in the head of cyber criminals who are going to attack us? We are not aware. So I will also take you through a story where we all know Uber got attacked. And it was just a mere social engineering attack by an 18-year-old boy who was with social engineering. He got the credentials, and he was into the Slack. And that's how the Uber got attacked. Now I say it is here to stay. Cyber attacks are not going anywhere. Cyber criminals will be, sitting in somewhere trying to make sure where and when they can get into their application, or maybe hack another human in whatever possible way they can. And what security measures we are taking right now? Do you believe that companies are doing enough for their security postures? Are they putting in enough effort to make sure that they safeguard their most valuable asset of their company? And I believe for a company, a most valuable asset is their employees, because they are the first line of defense. And that's what you should protect. Once your employee workforce is sound. They know the security in and out. I believe that is the most robust framework because even now we feel that human is the weakest link in this chain of security. So first, we need to train our workforce. So cyber attacks are here to stay, but what defenses mechanism we are having, that is what matters. And have businesses responded positively to this? Because whenever we see companies come in and say, I really do not have budget for security. Maybe next year we'll include certain kind of amount in the security activities that we want to do. So they always keep the security at the background. They do not want to include. But whenever you are developing a product or even you are establishing your startup or you are building a solution, security has to be ingrained in each and every life cycle of your software development or any solution that you are going to provide. So that is how it should be. Plus, training of your workforce. Have that employee engagement with you, maybe call in a guest lecturer, or maybe invest in some security training vendor that can help your employees understand how vulnerable they can be. And cyber criminals are always in search of that one disgruntled employee whom they will send that well-crafted email, and he's bound to click on that. And there is no stopping to it. There is no. I remember an incident which happened recently where a 74-year-old guy was, crafted for losing around 1.22 lakh rupees in Indian rupees. That's the attack that happened. So it was like Netflix sent him an email that his subscription was overdue. And it was very well crafted, like just as Netflix sent that email to him. And the QR code was sent, and when the man scanned it, immediately the money was gone. Just imagine how important it is to safeguard our family members as well. Because they are sometimes not even aware, like, these kind of things exist. So we need to bolster our cyber defenses. We need to protect our organizations. We need to protect our family members as well. But, whenever we think about it, we are already too late for it. Like if I take the example of AIMS Hospital, they realized ransomware attack happened. They were asked for around 200 crores in Bitcoin. And now just see the situation of AIMS right now. They have best-in-class solutions. They have everything in place, and they're all set. But why do we have to wait? Why we are always doing it a step later? Why not a step behind? But I say it's never too late. Even if you realize that it is now that I should be focusing on it, it is the time. So KLEAP recommends that you build a cybersecurity culture, train your workforce, train every employee, and build that culture from top to bottom and not other way around. We do it. You can connect me after the call. We should eliminate misconfiguration, miscommunication, and this can only happen when you have continuous testing in your infrastructure, be it your web, mobile, network, SOC, SIEM solution implementation, or data leak prevention. You should implement such kind of solutions which eliminate your misconfigurations. You have to adopt zero trust. Trust no one. This is the best solution that can be implemented in the current scenario. We can do it for you. You have to protect your critical workloads. Protecting your critical workloads may come in terms of adopting any security standard, any security like NIST recommends or OWASP recommends or ISO standard that you need to implement. Protect your critical infrastructure. Protect your critical workload so that when you are hit, you already have certain backup for it that you can recover. And I would always say that be ready for any kind of attack that any time can happen, because every second counts. Even if you think like you do not have security adequately, it's time to think about it. And thank you. I would also request Dr. Lee to share his side of comments as well on this.
Okay, today I'm going to cover a few points. These are the main points. And I want to emphasize the point that data breaches, threats would affect enterprises, large and small. And they often, in our research, arises from issues that we know are within our control, only if we were to implement them. And our research also show that these responsible areas can be understood from our analysis of some data breaches cases, which I'm going to cover at least one case. And these are, in that sense, preventable if you implement security controls and make them implemented. So for those who are not familiar with Cloud Security Alliance, let me do a few quick words. We are a global non-profit organization. We have two purposes in life. The first is to promote the adoption of best practices in providing security assurances in the use of cloud. The second area of focus will be to educate users in the use of cloud to secure other forms of computing. Other forms of computing will include AI, blockchain, IoT, and other means of, because increasingly a lot of computing will be done on the cloud, and therefore we need to understand how to use cloud to secure those type of computing. To this end, we provide training courses, and we also provide certification by means of partnership. So we are non-profit, we provide these services through partners. So today we are moving from the era of COVID lockdown to one which is freer. We no longer have to wear face masks in this auditorium, and we increasingly do not use hand sanitizer or wash our hands as frequently as before, neither do we have to maintain safe distancing. These are what we call health hygiene factors. In cybersecurity, we have the similar type of hygiene factors, which we are aware of. For example, if you are aware of 2017 and 2018 for the cloud, these are controls and measures that you should be implementing. If you're major cloud users, you need to use those controls prescribed to secure your application. So for my presentation, I will cover what I'm familiar with, what Cloud CSA provides in terms of the control matrix. So this CCM is the Cloud Control Matrix. CSA came about 10 years ago together with industry. Unlike ISO, we update this very regularly because our stakeholders require us to keep in touch with practice. So who are our stakeholders? Our stakeholders are cloud service providers, cloud users, as well as cloud solutions providers. So our members will include AWS, Microsoft, Google, and the like, and also big users like the banks who are using cloud. So these are the two stakeholders which provide the impetus for us to constantly update the control matrix. The control matrix is continually updated and has input from industry. So let me say something about version 3. Version 3 is a version that we did the analysis against. Version 3 has 16 control domains, which are essentially categories of controls which needs to be looked into. And in total, there were 133 controls that you need to be mindful of if you're using the cloud. And as any framework, we need to ensure that it's up to date and evolve with technology and time. So today, we are at version 4. Version 4 now has 17 control domains, which was one more. And in terms of domain, the security domain, there are now nearly 200 you have to be aware of. So it's not a matter of choice. A lot of people ask me questions. Must I do all of them? The answer is yes, all they are applicable. So like the COVID hygiene factors, if you're missing one of them, you're actually increasing the risk of getting COVID. But the point is, keeping all these secret controls doesn't mean that it doesn't guarantee you'll never get a breach. But it essentially means you reduce the risk, the probability of getting hacked or getting penetrated. just as the COVID health factors do the same thing. So, quick question for you. These are some of the companies we have worked with and we look at. So what do they have in common? They are brand names, all of you should know about them. So these are companies which have suffered data breaches and threats in cloud security in the past year. And we have analyzed them in a report, which is available freely from our website. You're free to download it. But for today's presentation, I'll only focus on the first one. That is probably well known, and maybe it's worth explaining how we analyze this first case. So in this case, Capital One, a major financial institution and a poster boy for cloud computing, suffered a data breach. And it lost 100 million records of its customers and credit cards application. So the technical details is, the culprit was a former AWS engineer, but who happened to know some vulnerabilities in AWS, and he made use of this vulnerability in the firewall to gain a credential to access overprivileged S3 buckets. As a result, he could get all of the data. And so what it means is, in terms of technical details, the data breach means that the buckets have access for him to get all these records. And this data pertains to 14 years worth of customer data and credit card application. And it gives rise to, I'm sure it raises a red flag in your mind, what security control has been violated. And the data are usually the usual personal identifier information, name, address, and date of birth, as well as credit card information, the person's SSN, just US-based, as well as it's linked to his bank account and things like that. So these are very major loss of data for this particular case. So the business impact is the bank had to pay penalties to a government agency called the Office of Currency Control, and also have to face penalties arising from violation of regulatory compliance. And at the time of the study, it's unclear whether it violated any GDPR cases, because some of the data could pertain to EU citizens. So what might happen in terms of job loss, the CISO had to leave. He was reassigned and then left. And then a dozen of cybersecurity agents, professionals also had to leave the bank as a result of this data breach. So we analyze this with respect to the cloud control matrix, but they're a bit too small for you. Maybe I should just highlight a few. So the result is a misconfiguration of firewall, and that is a major issue. So the point in cloud control matrix is you should have a baseline configuration for which you should frequently compare your current versus your baseline. And the other issue is to ensure there's no excessive writes to the data. So you need to be able to control it carefully. So some of this control can be used to detect. So in this case, the use of log to manage and to understand suspicious activities on the system will be useful for this case. And also a very good incident response process in place would allow the bank to quickly respond to a data breach when uncovered, and therefore able to work with the agencies, the authorities to do the necessary actions. So this is a very quick slide to summarize the results and analysis of the 9 case studies. It essentially shows which category they fall into. Most of these cases that we happen to select and which we're willing to share information, it's not a case of selection, but we had to persuade the banks to share this information. In fact, although I mentioned that data breach affects small and big companies, small companies usually don't want to share. There's nothing to share because they probably commit bigger sins than all these companies who can't even manage to implement some of these security controls we talk about. So it falls into categories which are listed in our study as misconfiguration. So most of them had misconfiguration as a major issue. That was the number one top threats 2 years ago, as well as managing of identity, as well as account hijacking, causing all this loss. So it shows which cases have this as a feature. And this E1, E2, E3 are what is listed here. So it relates to this, what we identify as top threats in the past years. And this is a report that you can now download. This is about 2 years old. We're coming out with a new report this year, which should be coming out pretty soon, 2023, we should study further new cases of data breach, which pertains to the use of cloud. This is another analysis of how, for each of the case studies we had, how it pertains to the cloud control that have been involved in. So if they have implemented certain cloud controls, those cloud controls can enable the bank, the user to detect, control, or prevent a data breach. So the number in each of the entry shows the number of controls involved. So for Capital One, you can see that total 16 security controls involved in the three categories of to be able to help to detect, prevent, and correct it. And as you see along the way, there are different cases where different controls are implemented, which means that for a big cloud users like Capital One, it has areas of which should be improved. So you would imagine a big company should be able to implement all of them, but sometimes you fail in one of them. So these are my parting thoughts. So hygiene factors for COVID-19 are applicable, but the same analogy applies to us in cybersecurity. We have to apply those applicable to us in cybersecurity, and in my case, cloud security. So we apply those which are applicable to the industry. For example, some of the control matrix we have pertain to mobile security, but none of the cases we study in the 9 cases study pertains by mobile security. So those controls are not applicable. So as good guys, the users, you always have to be right. It means you have to make sure all the controls must be implemented. You have been essentially told that you should be implementing these cases, but if you choose to not overlook one or skip one, you are actually providing a gap for the hacker or the bad guys to come in. So the bad guys essentially have to exploit that one single controls that you have not been looking at. And then with that, they can hit the jackpot. That is access to your crown jewel. So the question is, do you have to be alert all the time? The answer is yes and no. But we do know that the bad guys attack over long weekends and during holiday time. So year end like this is a time where they attack because your security professionals go on leave. There are fewer professionals around the company, and they will attack during those times. Because they know that fewer resources mean fewer people monitoring it. And therefore, if fewer monitoring it, therefore, fewer people will be responding to it. So that's my parting thoughts to you. Thank you very much. I think now both Shivani and myself are happy to field any questions that you might have for our presentation or any thoughts you have for the topic.
Hi. Thank you very much for wonderful presentation and a great insight on the data breach, and it's one of the major concern for each and every organization who are online. My question is it's most of the things were focused on the cloud-based data storage and organization. What about the on-premises they are hosting, and what are the terms will be applicable to the on-premises?
So if I understand your question correctly, you're asking what security posture you should implement on the data which is hosted on-prem?
Yeah.
Right. So it becomes all the way more important when your data is hosted inside your perimeter. I think this in terms gives a little advantage as well, because sometimes people do want to host their data in-house, because they do not fear that their data is traveling outside the borders of their geographical borders, like here in the Middle East. They have that policy that their data should always be hosted in. So we can have solutions such as containerization, where every department can have separate containerization of their data. That is a lot of companies do that for now. And I think that can be one way in which the data can be safeguarded. Plus, access control, where only the authorized personnel have access to the prized possession, that is the data. Plus, having disaster recovery and backup solutions implemented in case of any kind of
That's a breach, yeah.
yeah,
So,
happens.
see, my question was like, especially because if you see the new age technology, majority of the companies, they are focused on the artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence, the most important thing is the data. That may not be required for the public or end user, but they require it for, training their models. And which becomes like, more crucial as well at that moment. So my question was on that point of view, because most of the company, they're in the space of artificial intelligence, they always have on-premise or for data science and all that they are training the model, and then final solution when they deliver it, and then it goes basically on like only the outcome that goes on to the public domain or to their customers, B2B, whatever is there. So definitely identity management and data redundancy, they are the common things. But I was just thinking like if there's any additional specific insight that you might be able to highlight. But anyways, I mean that was good input. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. You spoke about the Capital One bank S3 bucket attack, right? And the impact the bank has to go through because of the attack. As a customer, when they used Amazon services, what was the impact on Amazon? What is the kind of responsibility Amazon has took, particularly for this breach, and what kind of measures and the accountability they have to pick up for that?
Okay, so in this case, the CSP involved will be Amazon, right? So we know that one of the possible cause would be the vulnerability arising from one of the features that Amazon has in the web application firewall, which pertains to the server-side request forgery. That particular feature has since been patched by Amazon. But then you understand, that has happened to be a case of a former engineer who happened to know this vulnerability and never reported it. So he exploited it after he left Amazon. So indeed, it is an alarm bell for a lot of us in the cloud computing world, in the sense Capital One is a poster boy for cloud computing. They invested a lot in their cloud implementation and in security. And so a breach like that actually caused people to have shaken faith in the cloud service providers. Because for a long time, since we started 10 years ago, cloud service providers have increased their security posture and their implementation very well. So much so that in our studies of top threats in cloud security, the nuances is the gaps have moved from the CSPs to the users now. The users, because they have not been able to keep up with the new advances or new features that the CSP come about. So that's why Shivani's point about training professionals and users to be more aware of cybersecurity issues are very important.
So if I understand, the financial impact that Amazon had to go through was only the business loss, which is not quantified.
I think the party responsible is the bank itself, not Amazon, because the Amazon as a CSP is providing a tool. How you use a tool, especially in this case, a misconfiguration, while the patch may be an issue, but the burden is on the bank because they have overlooked some of the controls which you have not implemented properly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions? No? Yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Shivani. Thank you, Mr. Lee.